Thank you everyone for dialing in and joining. I'm really excited about this Elevate session today. We continue to do these things which are sometimes related to, obviously very close to things that we do here at Centili, and sometimes it's related to topics that are related to broader industry. And in this case here, actually, for the first time, we're doing a topic that's interested to a broader society, and that I'm really pleased with the work that our marketing team has done, and actually arranging and facilitating for me to actually speak with two remarkable guests that we have on a topic of women in tech, women in leadership, and the debate about the topic. I'll do a very quick introduction of my not just speakers, but maybe I can call them my co-hosts, because today's webinar is actually arranged in a way that is more of an interaction, and it's very important that some of the views and some of the ideas are also shared from people that are online and listening, not necessarily just from us that are designated speakers. So very quick welcome also to Makeda Antoine-Cambridge, who is our first remarkable guest and speaker, a tech executive, a CEO, a business founder, a UN ambassador, a transformation trailblazer. I don't know, when do I start, Makeda? You stop, you tell me. For 2019, so thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, and I look forward to having a conversation with you. And then also Anne Gro Gulla, who is an international marketeer, a woman with a vast experience in telco tech, somebody who worked in marketing in positions in Telenor, Telia, Unilever, Coke, McCain. I mean, you can again also hear an established investor and also a consultant and a fictional writer. So I think that mix is just remarkable. And then, ladies, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone.
For finding time this morning to join the group here. Now, as I said, we chose a topic which it's not new, and it's something that is on the lips, and it's been on conferences, and it's been around for quite some time when we talk about women in leadership and women in tech. And when we say this and we add a word debate next to it, it all has a connotation that leads to imbalance, the gender gap, and all that comes with that story. So maybe just on top of the webinar, if we can, I'd like to ask Makeda and also then Anne Gro to kind of just give us in today's pulse of that conversation. And are we still in a debate? Did better last 10 years than where we were before? And maybe start with that a little bit from your background and your experience and projects, initiatives that you're involved with, and then maybe I'll introduce some of the other questions after that. Maybe if Makeda, you'd like to start.
Thank you, Zoran. And I do want to say thank you to Martina and Dina for organizing this session, because I think, especially in science, technology, engineering, and math, and in the world of ICT, the challenges are glaring with the absence of women at executive and leadership roles. I'll start with, there's an African proverb that says, when women lead, streams run uphill. The evidence shows that empowering women empowers humanity. Gender equal societies enjoy better health, stronger economic growth, and higher security, as well as gender equality contributes to peace. I must say there has been some improvement. We are not as we were a few centuries back, but we still have a very long way to go. And a lot of this has to do with socialization and the fixed gender roles that we have been taught across the world, because regardless of geography, socioeconomic status, it seems to be something that is global. Whereas the roles have been defined, and it takes a little bit more than a debate and a discussion to move it forward. So now we've been seeing, which we will discuss a little bit more later, a lot of political activity, leadership on this. But I want to share, I think my father used to say common sense is not that common, because according to the McKinney Global Institute, if we were to include women at all levels of leadership, $28 trillion will be added to the global economy by 2025. So it makes monetary sense to include women. How can you have almost 50% of the world excluded when you are creating products and building systems for them, yet excluding them at every major level? Okay, they can be at the lower level, the entry level, but middle management, executive management, they are absent. The UN has been proposing, and the Secretary General has been very adamant, given the goal 5 of the UN Sustainable Development Goal, is to achieve gender equality and empower all women. Gender equality is the single biggest opportunity for inclusive growth. It is a little bit sad though, because according to the East-West Center, 2.3 billion women do not have internet access, and 14% are less likely than men to own a mobile phone. But it is a bit of concern, whereas the tech industry is largely a man's world, and some can say a white man's world. According to the National Center for Women and Information Technology, only 11% of the computing and mathematical workforce in 2019 were people of color, 3% Black women. The numbers are changing. Women occupy 20% in the boardrooms. We continue to have challenges for access to financing and loan. But I must say we have made some progress, and I'm looking forward to joining that fight and taking my voice wherever it needs to happen, because we need to be where the decisions are being made. Great opening. Thanks for sharing those stats, and some of them are actually eye-opening, and yes, and some of them are still concerning. But yeah, Anne Gro, how about some of your opening statements and views on that?
I was over 40 years old when I became a feminist. And up until then, I was ignorant to the issue. And I'm Norwegian. I grew up in a country that is today one of the most emancipated countries in the world in terms of
Can you just speak a little bit louder, please?
Yes. Do you hear me now? Is it bad? Okay. I'll repeat myself. I said I was over 40 years old when I became a feminist, and prior to that I was ignorant. Because I grew up in Norway in the 70s, where actually my mother's generation fought for, were feminists. And they did all the stuff that we observed, and we kind of trailblazed after them and enjoyed, what they had been fighting for. So when, for instance, in school, the girls played against the boys in soccer, for instance, right? Now, moving on, I moved to Germany to study, and I stayed in Germany for 13 years. And only when I actually had a child, and I was in Germany, did I realize that, man, are there differences. So I actually decided to go back to Norway because of this. Because I didn't want to be in a country where being a career woman and having a children was seen as unique and rare. I wanted to go home to my safe haven, where I expected everything to be normal. But it was when working in a telco that I realized there is something that's wrong. And I was in Norway because there could be no other explanation to things happening than some unconscious bias. Mm. And you asked, Soren, is the debate still going on? And yes, it is. Even in our country, there is a debate.
And I think the right follow through to this is how active and what's the role of men in this debate? Is that also one of the I think one of the reasons for this not moving as fast as maybe as we wanted, given that that empowerment of women started, I mean, 30 years ago. It's not like that that is something that is so near. But are we, has the role of men in that debate evolved, changed, or no?
I can start, and yeah. I would definitely say yes. I mean, very often it is. I notice also the people in this call are a lot of women, which I think is great. And it would be even greater if it was more equal, because the issue is not really, if you talk business, this is not a feminist issue. This is a business issue. And as you said, Makeda, how could you, just, for instance, if you look at talent, only choose from half of the talent pool, right? So it is, but I do not think that men are ignorant to it. In Norway, there's something called She Invest, which is a great community started to get women to become investors. And they've been doing this for quite some years, and they have a huge conference every year. And the men are lining up to talk and to join. So I think men are in the conversation.
Makeda, yeah.
If I may add, I think men need to realize, unfortunately, they have the power. So if we are only 20% in the boardroom, that means 88% of you, 78% of you are making the decisions. If we're only 24% in Google and 26% in Facebook, that means it's dominated by not aliens, right? It's women or men. Mm. So the men have the power to change it. Let's start with something as simple as COVID. Researchers from the Boston Consulting Group surveyed 3,000 people in the US and Europe and found that working women currently spend on average 15 hours a week more on unpaid domestic labor than men. Not just one region. In Australia, provisional results show that in households with children, parents putting in an extra 6 hours a day of care and supervision, with women taking on more than 2/3 of the extra time. And I know, because in this COVID time, I have been cooking much more than I have ever cooked in my entire life. So much so people have been saying, has your mother been reincarnated? And my husband was at home, but then he was doing many different chores, and we don't even have children. So I know my friends with children have been clamoring and concerned about the unfair reality of our business world. We can't expect women to have full-time jobs, and we work in the telecom sector. We know we do not stop working. Our phones do not stop. People will call you at any time. A client will call you, your boss will call you, anybody will call you if they think you can help them at any time. So you're always on call, and then you come home to another full-time job. What do we need? We need the men with the power to help. You want to give us those opportunities and be real. Provide affordable and accessible childcare. A lot of companies are doing it now. Dismantle gender stereotypes in the job. I mean, I have been fortunate. I've worked for some of the most amazing companies who've always allowed me to bloom and grow and didn't say that was a male job, but that was a female job. Because I've largely been in a male-dominated field. I've been from a systems analyst, a programmer, a product manager, a marketing consultant, you name it. Largely, they are dominated by men. So when you have men having foresight and saying, we're going to give her the job. Not, I remember one of my jobs, I was traveling through Africa, and the C-level said, no, we can't have her traveling alone. I'm like, would you have that concern if I was a man? Well, okay, fine, Makeda, you can go. So sometimes as a woman, you challenge them and say, look, I can do this, let me do it. So a lot of our men, you can do things where you are. Who are you supervising? Are you allowing her a flexible work schedule? Can she leave earlier? Can she come in later? Can she check in? Does she have a young baby? What are you doing to ideally support? And something I want to touch on is gender-based violence, because we tend to submit and think that it only happens to certain women, poor women, certain classes, not at all. Educated, powerful, wealthy women are all affected. The stats have shown up to 70% of women have experienced physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime. How can my workplace assist me? Sexual harassment clauses on the job. What can you do? There's a lot you can do. You may not be the CEO, you may not be the founder, you may not be the investor, but if you're just a supervisor, it can start with you. So we need you, man, because this is not a fight by ourselves, and this is not even a fight. This is a partnership to make our world a better place.
That's what I was. I mean, I think that's well said, because if this is them against, one side against another, then we're actually taking all the wrong steps and actually going backwards. But I'm sure there's also a lot of success stories, and there's probably a lot of progressive thinking in some states, in organizations, in NGOs, and stuff like this. But before we maybe go there, I actually would like to start a little bit earlier, because I think still, and I can, maybe I'll speak for some men, if I may, to understand where does all this really start, meaning where's the root of the problem? Is it really of the way in early upbringing, the way we are taught? Is it the way we are being taught what is that the boys can do and what is that the girls can do, versus boys and girls whatever they want to do? Is that where the early beginnings of the issues really start to emerge? And at what stage we actually start to see that segregation? When does the early intimidation really start? Is it at school level? Is it later at university level? Is it at a first job? Is it only when we start to reach management executive positions? Where is that this gap starts to really then create? But I want to just get your view on that beginning. Where are we getting it wrong from day one?
Zoran, you do phrase, it's a huge question you're asking, right? And but I do come from listening to you, Makeda. I realize that I am a really spoiled girl living in Norway, where a lot of the things that you mentioned are, like childcare is really well taken care of. But where does it start? I think, personally, we have to realize that men and women are different. And I think in the 70s, it was like more like a force to say we're equal. We're not, or the same. We're not the same, but we're equal. So we are different. So, I have a son, and he didn't want to play with pink dolls, even though I tried. And he wanted to have guns and cars, and, nothing that I was teaching him. But in Norway, at least, the girls are the ones who win in school, not the boys. In fact, this is the big issue. And when you see at universities, it's like in law, I think it's 70% women, and the same with medicine. So the men or the boys are the losers in the school system, not the other way around, which is an issue here. So big question. One, I do think that the business world might be set up in a way that isn't really room for a broader sense of life. And I do see that changing, and and we're talking about tech, so digital solutions is obviously a huge change maker. And now with COVID, all this hybrid, that for instance, Telenor in Norway have said publicly, and they have, I think, 20 or 30,000 employees around the world, that basically no one needs to come back to the office, and lots of big companies have done that. And what we also see is that you can work more flexible. But so this might change, but there's something about coming from a country where opportunities are indeed equal, the result is not. And as you might know, Norway introduced a quota for board positions in 2008, where all companies on the stock exchange, mind you, had to have a 40% representation of female board members by law. So obviously that is the case. But if you look at, there are many other boards that are not on the stock, so it's still actually only 20, I think it is. And the chair of the board is 89% women. No, men, sorry, not women, men. So where does it start? Don't women want to? The issues that you mentioned, Makeda, about about childcare and cooking, I think they're much less in our country because men have to be at home with kids, and also by law, so it's all of these things are equal. But is it something about the environment? Question.
If I may add, Norway is far advanced in these conversations. The Nordic countries, even Finland, have parental leave as of 2020 for men and women, almost unheard of. I think just Canada have similar. But I do agree with you, Zoran. This is socialization. This is pre-industrial revolution. These are roles that have been socialized into our thinking, into our upbringing, that a man does this, a woman does this. A man is a mechanic, a woman is a seamstress. A man is an engineer, a woman does hairdressing. These are roles. Sometimes even if you don't directly teach a child what, as a parent, you enforce in them, you say to them, that is acceptable and that is unacceptable. And you ask, where does the change happen? Based on some of the data, it says it happens in high school to college. So you find young women, because a number of NGOs, I have my own Genesis, the movement, where we sponsor 1 to 2 university students, female students who are studying STEM every year. And then we have another organization I partner with, Caribbean Girls HAP. And we see that the girls are in the minority to choose the programs, and when they are in the programs, there are challenges. So the teachers would be saying, why are you choosing that for? You can choose something easier. That's too difficult for you. You're going to fail anyway. You know you're going to have a baby and drop out. In 2020, our young women are being told that by our school system. So this is not just hope. This is a societal problem where gender roles have been formalized by whomever, but they have been formalized. And it will take more than conversation to change this, which is why I'm glad that the Nordic countries have gender quotas, and some countries have corporate governance codes and other things. But just to touch on what was shared earlier about the law school being 70%, in the Caribbean, we're quite blessed. I was a female ambassador, our ambassador to the UN. New York was female. We have a lot of women in powerful places of position. I did not feel as if because I'm a woman, I cannot do that. I felt as if any job I wanted, if I went in and I aced my interview, that opportunity would have been mine. And at no time, my father, I think he was the first feminist I knew. We have 9 children, he had 7 girls, and we would joke that he probably wanted sons because we were all trained, listen, you get it done. You go in, you take charge, you lead, I want you to be a leader. So my upbringing is ones that, you're not better than me, please bring it on. Whatever you say to me, I can do. And as my father would sometimes say, a girl could even do it better. But a lot of that has to do with socialization. And we find even with the law school, because my niece is graduating from law school next year, is that even if the class is 70 and 80% women, the law firms are 90% owned by men. Mm. The senior partners are more than 50 and 60% men. So what's happening? Why is it not transferring into leadership? Why is it not transferring into our girls opening their own law firms or choosing? Because there's some silent but powerful message saying, you stay in your little place. You don't step out of that little box. And if you do, we don't approve of you. There's a saying that women who are rebellious are not always remembered well, but they're the ones who break all the molds. Mm. So it is a big thing, and organizations like Centili who choose to deal with it are how we change it, to be honest. Mm.
I mean, I think this is great lead up into what Anne Gro also mentioned. But I will be a little bit maybe provocative behind one of the statements just to hear your views. I think we started to feel good and celebrate that there's more female at the board level, in a boardroom and so forth. But I'm just I just want to ask you, is that also giving us a bit more time and excuse for actually not then having, because there's we are like talking about there's more representation of female at the board level, while we still have only 5% CEOs in Fortune 500 companies that are actually female. So I just want to hear your quick view on this. Is are we going to celebrate this board stuff for way too long while actually not addressing this other issue is, yes, they are capable to lead. Yes, there should be more than 5% CEOs on Fortune 500, and obviously across the board others. I'm just curious about this because, again, that could just create another, I just think another new silo of ours there. Hey, we are celebrating boardroom access, but no, hold on, leadership access. That is what that kind of, I wanna hear what you think about it.
I think it's fantastic that you raised that, because 2008 this law in Norway was introduced, and so the big change is that there's no longer a debate about if women can do, or if there are enough women to do boards, because that's just proven. So there is a more discussion, but what else happened? Now, I guess we can't blame one law that was done for the boards for not helping to get more female CEOs, because that is not what the law was supposed to do. But I personally feel a big disappointment, because it's kind of in that, it was kind of that hope that when there is an access there, that things would happen automatically. And it has not.
Yes.
7% of the biggest companies in Norway, the 200 biggest, are led by women. I mean, that's nothing.
Nothing.
And even on the executive level, it has not become 40, 60, or 50-50 at all. And also in the startup scene, I sit as a so-called executive resident in something called Startup Lab in Norway, for tech incubator. And when they started in 2016, there were 8% female founders. Today is 25, which is quite high, so that's, but this is a push also from Startup Lab. But if you look at, for instance, female-led companies are vastly underfunded in Norway compared to men.
And that's worrying. Makeda?
Yes, if I may continue that, I was going to touch on that same point, because so corporate governance, you comply with what the government said, because otherwise you'll be fined, you might be blacklisted. And these guys, I'm using guys loosely, because it is 89, 79% men, will decide, okay, we'll work with the system. They want that, we'll give them that. So I think it requires more than just compliance. It requires genuine transformation. Because the people who are making the decision to make you the CEO, most likely is the board. So the CEO is more or less decided by the board, if the company has a board, or whoever the founders, who largely are men anyway. So it's like, I had a friend who did a PhD in a topic like that. He said, like attracts like. So you tend to attract what you know, what you're comfortable with, what you have faith in. So the thinking is that, well, she's not, and there's a negative stereotype for women, right? She will leave and go take care of her children. She'll get frustrated. Because we have been socialized to think, the men will fight history. Even if they're not even enjoying it, they will stay to the end. It's a fight for them. And when we understand that business, that life, that society is not a short-term financial goal, but long-term growth and development. You want companies that can provide services, that can employ people, that can continue to add value to our countries. So the thinking, it has to be a transformation, and that is no easy task, because I agree with what Anne said, and we've seen that. The question is, did the gender quotas, did the correspondence governance code, did it address the glass ceiling? No. Did it address the pay gap? No. Sometimes it's led to them just putting women who may not even be experienced, women who they know, women who are in their circles, just to fulfill a criteria set by law, rather than letting the qualified, professional, competent ones be promoted to that role. It ends up being, okay, let's just comply, but not just do what they were hoping to do, which is open the market to true leadership and allow women a genuine opportunity. So it doesn't really address it.
But I like to say, though, that I'm actually glad that we have that quota law in Norway, because
yes, it is important.
Just that we have to realize it was not enough to do you know, it wasn't the start of the snowball started rolling, let's put it this way. Or maybe it was, or maybe it just takes a long time. So there are other things that we need to do. And one issue that is very much discussed in Norway today is about female ownership, which I think is actually even more interesting. Because let's face it, if you look at business, the owners actually do decide everything. So I mentioned something called She Community that was started some years ago to address exactly that. And in fact, last week I was lucky to lead a debate on the question, what triggers women to invest? And when preparing for that, I learned from She Invests that they had something called the female financial confidence. And I felt almost, gosh, you know, how can we even have such a terrible word? Because isn't that pretty obvious? But apparently there is a huge, I mean, it is in Norway, 30% of the value of the stock exchange is owned by, well, the stocks are owned by women, but that is only 20% of the value. Mm-hmm. So the biggest bank in Norway has also done a huge advertising campaign about having women invest. And I think this is essential. And I told you, Soran, that I'm actually a whiskey investor. So we started a whiskey and gin distillery in Norway, and we are only female investors. We are 67 women who own this distillery. And it has created a massive attention in the media, which is obviously wonderful for us. But again, to link back to your very first topic, is this still a debate? You know, and that really proves that it is. But ownership is an issue that we need to tackle.
Amazing.
Zoran, if I may add, just to add to what Anne was saying, which I totally agree with, because we use Finland a lot, because I think the Prime Minister is 29 years, I mean, just love that. And when they introduced their gender quotas, much like Norway, their numbers went from 12 to 29%. And programs are important. So the She Invests, I know the UN has, the ITC, International Trade Center, has She Trades. The WTO has a UN Declaration on Women and Empowerment for Trade. And there's a Gender Champion program where ambassadors are asked to be gender champion, and where you are, it is required to have gender parity at all panels. So if you are organizing a panel, it is highly recommended, of course it's kind of be mandatory, that you have equal men and women at that panel, because women voices are important and they don't need to be found, they need to be given a space. Another thing the UN was doing is actively seeking women in roles. The Finland Chamber of Commerce implemented a mentoring program for women in mid to high level managerial positions as a supplement to their current approach. So for instance, if you apply to WIPO, you will see a sign, World Intellectual Property Organization. There's literally a note at the end of your CV of the job description saying women are highly encouraged to apply. The Secretary General in his last term, this current term I should say, he has been not just saying I'm a gender champion, I want women there. No, the last 3 executive roles, he ensured they were filled by women. The new executive director of the ITC is a woman from Jamaica. The new High Commissioner of Human Rights is a woman from Chile. The new executive director for UNAIDS is a woman from, I think is Namibia, one of those African countries. So leadership has to play a role in getting women at the CEO positions. Because even in the world of politics, you're not going to put yourself there. Somebody has to recommend you there. Somebody has to hear what you have to say, listen to your approach, and do what needs to happen. And gender quotas are important because they open the door. But creating places for women at the executive level really, really requires that a decision be taken by men who have the power.
And if we move now a little bit into the conversation of some of these existing perceptions, I would like to hear your thoughts, and maybe we can ask some of this online conversation. Is your views on the perception which was, I guess, a historical perception. And one of them you mentioned, both of you mentioned in your opening statements and some of the comments, is the perception of men have more confidence, women have less confidence. The childcare story, it's a mother's story, it's a parent's issue, correct? The capability that for some reason we are, always perceived or told or so forth, that men have more capability and so forth. I mean, I think all three, in my view, are totally often wrong. But is that perception heavily still prevailing? I mean, is that something that's holding a lot of these programs and decisions back? Because if I just look at these three kind of bold statements: confidence, childcare issue, and capability. What can be done differently to actually, kind of just crash those perceptions and move ahead?
Well, for Scandinavians, the childcare issue is actually off the table, because
off the table, yeah.
It's not an issue here.
A little bit louder, Anne Gro, again.
Okay, I have no idea why it's happening, but so no, that is just off the table. I mean, now when there's a child born, it could just well be that the father is away for 6 months, so okay. That is off the table. And when it comes to capabilities, women are better educated on average, or the same or better. So that, I would say, is that off the table. I don't know if it's confidence. What I think we need are still role models. And, since I was actually quite old when I became a feminist, it's just in recent years that I've actually realized how important it is to be a role model. And so I take that seriously in terms of, I've also been, mentoring younger girls. And I'm also not afraid to show, all of me in a business setting in the way you mentioned that I'm also a fiction writer. And I don't know if that's female or not, but my experience is that to be open also a little bit about other things that are not only business related. I had cancer 5 years ago, and I blogged about that in Huffington Post. And I also wrote a little book about it. And quite often I have spoken to businesswomen who also had breast cancer, because that voice of that part of life happens to so many of us, is rarely seen inside a business context. So to be a role model, I think, is absolutely essential, to be aware that you have to be that.
Very good point. Makeda?
Yes, I have to agree. The importance of role models are important. I was appointed the 10th ambassador to the United Nations for Trinidad and Tobago. And I think before my posting, most people didn't even know what an ambassador did, because I invited them into my world, because I come from the world of telecom. I've done marketing and product management. So of course I'm going to fuel my expertise into my area. And I think I was one of the first ambassadors in my region to invite people into your world. So I had a Facebook page and I would share my experiences. And I would get messages, inbox messages from mothers, from young women. How can I be one? We didn't know we could be one. And I was like, really? This is such a big deal? Because I did not realize it was bigger than me. I was thinking, okay, I did a role. I'm going to make sure I do a good job. I have my mother to be proud. I have my family. But it was bigger than my family. It was bigger than me. It was this whole young generation who suddenly cares about international relations, who wants to be foreign affairs. And then I started exposing them to my real career in ICT, and how can we do that? So I absolutely believe role models are important, because young women and young boys, they idolize who they want to be like. And most of the time those people influence their career. For the rest of the world, the Nordics are quite blessed, and I have a few siblings who live in the US and in the Caribbean. Daycare continues to be a challenge. In Trinidad and Tobago, which is the country I'm from, leaders are quite visionary. So we have like an early school to tertiary education program where it's all free and government assists you. But there's still challenges if the child is under 3 years. And then another challenge is you have, if the mother is working in the city, and the child is going to school in the country. Who's going to take the time off to go and deal with sickness? So childcare continues to be a real concern. One of the director generals for the UN, I think was WTO, Azevedo, he recently left. On one of our sessions that Trinidad and Tobago held with the EU on women in trade, they were saying the UN is a body tasked to push these policy initiatives across the world. But what is that? What UN organization provides childcare? One organization at that time provided childcare. All the others were, you're on your own. Okay, I'm just saying that. But the systems and policies that were in place were non-existent. So childcare continues to be a major issue. And I am seeing where my husband is working, and I have more time available now because it's more, I'm doing what I want. But if there is a challenge, he said, babe, you go now. I can't leave. I'm like, why you can't leave? Babe, you go. No, I said, why you can't leave? I mean, my time is important too. And it becomes that conversation between us. And I said, so when the babies come, it's going to be me every time. You better get accustomed to taking some time off from work. Because in his mind, that, well, you handle, I'm like, you have to handle too, make the time. And I think so many times we've seen in our own home that mommy made the time. If mommy was working, mommy took the time off. Daddy had to say, well, mommy has a job, daddy has a job too. So childcare continues to be important, and confidence.
You have to tell your husband you have to move to Norway when you have kids, okay?
Trust me, we've considered. But the funniest thing is that he did his master's in Sweden, and he said, babe, it's too cold. But confidence is important but I think confidence comes through role models. Yeah. So if you see people do it, or you have a sense of somebody who has done it, even me as an adult woman who's accomplished so much by God, in a moment of fear or concern, or I always think, you know what, you're not the first woman to do this. And if God put it on your lap, you can do this. So role models help with doing it. Even hearing Michelle Obama share her story, hearing other women share their stories, you're like, oh my God, they have those challenges too. Okay, I'm fine. So role models are important, but definitely childcare and those gender roles will help.
And then I also think you need to be really practical. I mean, I have been really, really lucky to work for some super, super strong female bosses. And my latest one is called Helene Barnekovs. She is in Sweden, international businesswoman, now the CEO of Microsoft. And she had some really practical rules. She said, for instance, when we were hiring, and the 3 last candidates were to be interviewed by her, one of them that had to be 2 genders. One of them had to be a man or a woman. And if somebody came and said, I only have 3 women or 3 men, she would go, sorry, not good enough, go back. And I think that, and more importantly, is that she did that. And you know what it's like, you're hiring, you don't have time, you spend a lot of time, but still. So you need to have those really clear, practical things to show that you actually walk the talk. And then you have to pull through with it.
Interesting. Very, very, very good example of how somebody leads by example, and probably installs this as a practice that can be promoted and replicated in other places. So maybe I think it's time to. I'm sure there's questions also coming from the team and everybody that joined us today. So I would really like to open the microphone to whoever would like to join the conversation and ask some questions. So guys, feel free. Microphone is yours. Maybe just let me know who you are and let's get on. Anyone?
I can start if you hear me. Yeah. So thank you everyone so much. It's been really interesting, and I think time is really flying. So I wish this could last a bit longer with such guests and talks. And I think the role model topic is very relevant, and thank you for bringing that up. I think this is definitely something we should all work on a bit more. And I also wanted to ask about one more thing, maybe to both of you, Makeda and Anne Gro, and that's the question of female authority at work. Because you've both had a very relevant work experience in higher level positions, in managerial roles, leading larger teams, and especially in the tech or IT industry. And I think what many women face as a problem there in practice is that even if they manage to get a position, if they get their dream job, there is still even some unspoken opposition by the boys' club and men's clubs below. Sometimes there are men who do not like to be led by women or do not feel comfortable with that. And I'm sure you felt it at some point in life that, it's not easy just to take on a leadership position. You have to prove yourself much more as a woman, especially if you're in this male-dominated world, such as IT, right? And I'm sure that you've led other women with similar issues. So I wanted to ask if you could maybe share your own experiences on how did you overcome this? Do you have any good practices or examples to share, or what do you tell other women that you work with or mentor to do in such cases?
Okay, I mean, since I, was ignorant to the issue quite long in my career, it wasn't an issue. So in the beginning, okay, but honestly, I think that what you put in your head is important. So if you go and think this is an issue, it will become an even bigger one. Having said that, yes, I've experienced exactly what you're asking, Dina, and I have two advice that I very often say to women, and one of them is, when you are asked to do something and you can't for whatever reason, maybe you got to pick up your kid in kindergarten or whatever it is, it's very female to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it, and then add because. And that's where I tell my female employees, shut up. Because the moment you start telling why you can't do it, whoever's asking you to do something will try to solve it so that you can do what he or she wants you to do. Mm-hmm. And you get a lot more respect if you just say, I'm so sorry, I can't do it. And you might even add, how about another solution? But you don't have to, tell everything why you can't. And another thing is that I think many have experience sitting around a board table or executive table, and you say something and it's not listened to, and maybe a male says the same thing, and all of a sudden it's genius. And there I think, and that is terrible when that happens. And there I think we as leaders have a huge responsibility. Again, I've heard stories of amazing board directors, for instance, who are aware of that. And that is not necessarily only a female issue. Could also be somebody else who has a brilliant idea, but maybe not so good at phrasing it. As a leader, then you have to say, I hear what you're saying. Is this what you said? And so on, to make it kind of bigger. And then the last one, and I see, Makeda, you have a lot of good input, I'm sure, is also to give each other support. Think about that. If somebody says something in a meeting, said, nod your head and said, interesting, or I'd like to add to that, or something like that. Give each other credits.
I want to just start with the last point that Anne made, because I absolutely agree with it. And I think it was the advisor to the Obama administration that introduced a system like that. Whenever a woman made a point, most times people would just stay silent, and then the man would say the same thing, like, oh, excellent. So when a woman made a point, another woman would say, yes, I agree. Another one would say, yes, that sounds good. So you have strength in numbers. Even as an ambassador, we have a band of sisters, even those who've left, and we just support each other. You go up there, you make a mistake, you're even in come out, we support each other. In the world of tech, ICT is beautiful but special. You have to work, I won't say twice as hard, 3 times as hard. And once they realize, oh my God, she's a unicorn, okay, we listen to her. And I think that's so unfair. So if my numbers have doubled yours, okay, fine, you can talk to me. If my numbers are equal to you, what does she know? And that happens throughout the, but I think what helps is leadership. So make good examples of women who succeed, because sometimes you end up being the loser. You might be promoted as a manager and you have very little friends, and your marriage is being challenged, and your children you have to run around, and people just say, oh, she's gonna fail, just leave her alone, she's gonna fail. So leadership has to make good examples of women who have succeeded and congratulate and give that attention, because then you have other women say, no, I don't want to be the manager, I'm okay. I know of friends who graduated with me, still database administrator 15 years after, still systems analyst 15 years after, because they refuse management. In their mind, management is work, management is sabotage, management problems, I do not want it. And they will be a manager 10 times better than the man that they have there. But in their mind, they will not get the support, so I do not want it. And I think it's important that even one of the challenges we have with demand splitting, I check you every time on it. If you didn't hear what I said, let me just repeat it. I do not need you as a man to explain what I just said. You speak English, I speak English. You speak Croatian, I speak Croatian. Okay, we went to the same school. Respect what I say. That is very important. And that comes from not just being in an environment where that is encouraged, because you know in any organization, organizational culture is important. So if it is perceived that a male's point of view is what is rewarded, a male's point of view is what is celebrated, then women are going to just stay in their corner and stay quiet, because we will just talk to each other and be fine. But you as a company will lose, because I will have an idea that will bring you millions and you'll be sitting there disrespecting me, and I say, well, fine, you don't want to hear from me. So we all lose when we don't give women that space to feel free to speak. And lastly, what I want to say, when I led men, I came from a home where my father was an alpha male. So I know men, I understand them. I just close my eyes sometimes and say, I love you too, you know? Yeah, let's work through this. Let's make this happen. But I think respect and communication is important, because the way we communicate is different to how they communicate. And in leading any team, you want to make sure what message you are sending that they receive. Because you can be a woman and communicating in your female emotional space sometimes, and they're dismissive of you. But if you communicate in a way that makes sense to them, and you are clear and you're fair, they will respect you. And they will have your back. I have seen that. They will have your back. They will fight for you in the room, out of the room. They will be like, oh my God, I'm so proud. So it has to be two-way, but as a leader in any room, you have to put more in. And as a woman, unfortunately, we are judged a little bit harshly, but it is where it is. And you know what? Many women have done it before. We can do it.
Can I give one more advice that I thought of that I think is really important, and that is you have to learn public speaking. You have to learn to speak on stage. Whether you're pitching as a startup or you are in a big company selling your ideas. And the good thing about that, it can be learned. There are, some people are more or less natural, but still, even if you're not, you can go to courses. And I was at London Business School, and I was asked if I can give advice on this topic on how to do public speaking. And I said, okay, do the training. And in addition to that, I have two advice. One is when you get on stage and you see your audience, give them love. You don't have to say that, just think it, because it calms you down. And the second advice is wear really nice underwear. And the reason for saying that is that if you feel uncomfortable, like you do when you have, the underwear is wrong, what you think about is yourself. And so if you're not comfortable in what you're wearing, maybe your hair is not right, and you think about you, and every time you're concerned about you do not communicate with the audience. So it's just a metaphor to get your attention about the underwear. Yeah.
So I just want to add one last point, if I can, to our women leaders: learn to negotiate. Sometimes you take a job and you're just happy to be in the leadership position or in management, and they realize, oh, you're a worker, we're going to give you all the work. So, okay, you want to increase my workload? Fine, I need an additional staff. We'll be working later. Okay, would we be giving people time and a half? Learn to negotiate, because when you're leading, you're not just leading you, you're leading your team. And your team must feel like they can trust you. So learn to negotiate for yourself and learn to negotiate on their behalf.
Don't give too many ideas to my staff, please.
Please do.
This was great. So just for the record, Dina is one of our executives, and I think she has actually met you before, because this is exactly how she talks to me.
Yeah, we have met.
Martina, I think you wanted to jump into conversation.
Yes, I did. But I also see Veronica asking to say something. Maybe to allow Veronica to ask a question. Veronica, please.
Yes.
Thanks, Martina. Thanks, Zoran, for facilitating this, and obviously to Makeda and to Anne for giving such amazing contributions. I see that we are 55 people here. And I'm really happy we are not all women. I would like that we are more diverse, both in terms of like surnames and, you know, whether we are people of color or whatever. But anyways, Makeda and Anne, what is the one thing, no matter how little or big, that we could be doing starting as of today or as of tomorrow with our own teams, with our own co-workers or friends, that we could actually help raise awareness about the need for having better diversity, specifically here about women in tech, but also overall. So how can we ensure that, I know, in the next conversation of this kind, there's not 55 people, but I don't know, 200. And 200 like super diverse people, not the, like we are sort of preaching to the converted, we are already aware and just making it to the next step. But how do we make sure we, with our own actions, amplify the impact of what we are discussing here today and learning from you?
Great, thanks.
I actually think that we need to speak a lot more about the joy of leadership. And regardless, because we do tend, when we talk about women in leadership, to focus on all the problems. And of course, the barriers needs to be addressed to be overcome. But I mean, as a marketeer, you know, we need to speak about the joy. And you said how to attract more men. You know, as we have both mentioned, you know, you cannot only use 50% of the talent pool, you need to use everything. So how to even increase your business performance could be a good topic that might attract more men.
Okay.
I know you asked for one, but I'm going to suggest two. One of my former employers had a mentorship program, but it was a different mentorship program where they chose top performing staff, male or female, and you were literally mentored by a member of the executive. So I was mentored by the chief legal officer, and trust me, that's where I learned to negotiate the way I do. So other people were mentored by the CMO, the CSO, and you found that women had an inside view of how decisions are made, of the politics, of the communication. So that is one sure, quick way to not just say, okay, we're going to look at women in leadership, but to show to staff that this is something that we genuinely care about. Secondly, being in ICT for the last 21 years, I have more or less been the only girl or probably the only female manager. So most likely 90% are men, mostly men. And then I moved into product management and I started managing men and women, and I realized, oh, there's a difference. Because somebody will always have to leave early to pick up their child, somebody's a doctor's appointment, somebody's child is sick, and I would say, well, when am I getting my work done? We need to figure out a way to do this. And then I would sit down and say, let's agree on a flexible working schedule. And that was it. Some came from 7, left at 3. Some came at 10, left at 6. And I had no complaints. My work was done. Even more than I required was done. Because people felt, oh, she cares about other things than only what I want her to deliver. She cares about me. She cares about my issues. So I saw the workload increase. I saw the productivity levels increase. Because I think staff felt that I met them where they were, rather than dragging them to where I wanted them. Which at first I was criticized for dragging people to where I want to, because I was working too fast and moving too fast, and they're not going to meet with you. And then I said, okay, let's just sit and meet. What's going on? Tell me what I need to do wrong. How are we fixing this? And the flexible working schedule worked. So I would suggest those two.
Very good, thank you. Martina.
Yes. Actually, I had the 3 or 4 questions, but I'm watching at the time right now. Maybe to address the media angle. You know, media nowadays as a powerful force in society. I would say in almost any country of the world. So what we've seen in the last 2, 3, maybe 5 years is the expectation of the media changing towards the organizations. So nowadays, for example, the BBC. Journalists and editors, telecom editors, when talking to companies, they will ask for a more diverse set of people they want to talk to as the representatives of these companies. So now they almost have this mantra, because I hear this when talking to PR agents. from different parts of the world is like, give me a female spokesperson, give me a woman I can interview. So do you see this as a force, as a significant force that could change things? How, to what an extent it can influence this reality that we have today, like the pressure from the media?
Well, I think the media is important, and I think sometimes the media leads, sometimes the media follows. So I think like the Me Too movement that started bringing attention to sexual harassment across the world to some of the more powerful and popular women was eye-opening for other women to speak up. So then you had the media seeming to appear as if issues of women in leadership we cared about. And then sometimes you have the media is guided by what is happening locally or regionally, whether it is political pressure, whether it is the European Commission talking about gender quotas. So I think the media is a very, very important tool, because even when the UK introduced their corporate governance code, and now they had to comply or explain who are the diverse members on your board. A lot of times those things are in place and nobody follows up on it, but the media followed up on it. So everybody was talking about, wow, the UK, those big companies. So I think the media has played a very important role of keeping these issues at the fore. And I think the media can continue to play an important role, because people are, and sometimes the media, I think, is feeding from what people want. So people online, social media has been a trigger to what you're not reflecting us, you're not diverse, let's speak up. There's a Me Too, there's Black Lives Matter movement. There are a lot of things happening at the bottom that is triggering the media. And then there are things happening at the top, the political pressure, the gender quotas, the new laws, even in California. So I think the media stays between, but the media is critical to changing this narrative.
Yeah, and I totally agree. But you mentioned something, Martina, if I got you wrong, that the media is asking for female spokespersons, and that is obviously great. I just want to warn for using women as scapegoats, because a spokesperson who actually is a real thing, you know, that's essential. But even in Norway, you know, being as emancipated as we are, there's a lot of attention on these issues every day. And now at the moment is a Danish TV host who actually from stage a couple of days ago talked about gender imbalance and salaries, and it's all over the world, at least in our part at the moment. So media is super important, absolutely.
And I think just to add on this one, I think you mentioned media training for female executives. I think on this specific topic, I think media needs to retrain themselves.
Agreed.
Simply because, I mean, I read, I watched speeches also of female CEOs that refused to answer questions on on an important topic, because they were asked just because they're a female CEO, which diverts the story away from what this was all about. The question was about an important topic, not because she's a female CEO. And that was, again, it came from what you would have thought. It was a trained media person and getting opinion or input about a very critical topic. But great questions indeed. I'm mindful of time. Maybe one more question or two more, and then we can wrap up. I'd like to maybe hear from some other members in the audience, also some guys perhaps. Okay, anyone, any question, anything to share, maybe your experience? Don't be shy. Okay, I think here, you know, yeah, somebody wanted. Alexa, you wanted to say something?
No.
Nope. Okay, I think maybe I'll just wrap it up with few closing remarks. First of all, remarkable hour of sharing and experience, and yes, I think my first question was clearly answered. Is it still a debate? And I think yes, it is. No matter how much I wanted to challenge the concept of, of maybe this has moved into a partnership and into a conversation that is not just a debate, but I think it still is, and there's still a lot of work to do. I think in tech and in companies like ours, and obviously in an industry like ours, I think it's clear that we need to promote and we need to identify role models and actually get behind them and support them in any possible way in order to get that pull effect for anybody else that feels that maybe they won't have a chance, or that maybe there will be a ceiling somewhere for them as they progress in their careers. And yes, today we are in tech, tomorrow we will be in non-tech environment, and I think the thinking needs to be the same. Tech is on the forefront. It's kind of the place to be, and that's why maybe it's getting this much attention. But I think both Makeda and Anne Gro will agree. There's no difference, and it's probably worse in oil and gas, or in some of the other industries as well. And I think there's still a lot of work to do in order to move beyond that 20%, participation of female in coding, in leadership, in tech, and so forth. Because it is true that we have done well in many companies, and programs are in place, and policies are changing, and I think activities and core values are being built around that closure or gap, and that level of inclusivity, and obviously strengthening the leadership team and executive team, and make it as in a parity as possible. But net, I think this is just probably one of many conversations that we within our organization will continue to participate with, and I promise that I will circle back to you guys and talk about this on and even report of how we are doing and lessons that we are learning on. Because I'll close with thanking you for being part of this conversation today, for finding time, and for everybody else that carved out hour plus in the middle of a day to listen to us and to talk to us. And I'll just close today's conversation with something that part of my team knows, and what my mom told me: if you want things done, leave it to the woman. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, ladies. Bye.